Hi guys, I'm Irene. This is Perpetually Paperback, and today I'm doing my December wrap-up. So before we get started on this video, be sure to like and subscribe for future videos, and so we can talk about books. Anyway, so today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up, and I'm just going to go in chronological order of how I read them. The first book I'm going to start with is The Paris Wife by Paula Mclain. So this is the selection, this was the selection for my book club, and it was actually in conjunction with a Hemingway cookbook, which is actually a really cool thing, and I really liked that as far as the book goes. That's kind of where it ended as far as my liking the book. This was actually included in my 2020 worst of the year. I give it 1 star. I just really didn't enjoy it. So this book is about Hemingway's first wife, and her name was... Honestly, I can't remember because one of the things in the book was that they would always call each other these nicknames, and the nicknames were constantly changing, and they would both refer to each other as the nicknames. So her name didn't actually get mentioned all that much, but it's about his first wife. But it is a fictionalized account of a real person's life. So that's honestly kind of like, that alone right there is, I'm already not very interested. I like memoirs and I like autobiographies, and I like fiction stories. I don't like reading what someone else thinks this person's life was like. It just, to me, is not interesting. Not only that, the fact that the book had zero plot, like literally zero plot. There was nothing that happened. I hated the main character. It was the antithesis of a person that I would ever like. I don't want to offend anyone. So realistically, if everything you value in your life is to be a wife, that's great. No judgment on my end. I personally cannot live like that. I need to have personal goals and things like that. And so the thing that frustrated me the most about this main character was that she just didn't. She was there to be the wife of Hemingway, and everything in her life revolved around that. So for me, it was just frustrating to read, and I was hoping for some type of a character arc where she was both redeemed and found a life for herself, and I just didn't get that. And it was just a bunch of despicable characters. It was written in a very Hemingway-esque way, which was in essence kind of cool to read, but it's like, if you've read The Sun Also Rises, just read The Sun Also Rises. I would say that's kind of the extent of my feelings towards it. So that was 1 star. Moving on. After that, I definitely needed a palate cleanser, and I've been reading the Ravenels series by Lisa Kleypas. So the next one I read was The Devil in Spring. I believe this is the book 3, and this one is where Pandora meets Gabriel. I believe he's a duke, by the way. So she marries very, very well. And I'm actually going to go and do a full review of the Ravenels series, but I think of all of them I've read, this is my favorite. I actually read it twice in December, or I read it once, like read the physical book, and then I actually heard the audiobook. I started to listen to some of them with the audiobook, and honestly, I just like the narrator. So I actually ended up hearing this one twice, but I loved it. I loved the character of Pandora for everything that the character in The Paris Wife was not. She was 100% independent. She was for herself. She was going to live the life that she wanted. And I would actually say that the compromises in this one were not... It wasn't too bad. I think it was great. There was nothing really stupid in it. There was also kind of a really cool other element that was completely unexpected and totally awesome. You'll know if you read it, but it has to do with the Irish mob. Who knew? So this one was actually, I usually don't give, it's a little bit mean, but I don't give historical romances 5 stars, not because they're not good. This was, I think I gave this one 4 stars, but I generally reserve my 5 stars for like outstanding works of fiction. Not that I didn't enjoy this greatly. That's where I reserve my 5 stars. But ultimately, I did read this twice. I loved it. I loved it so much. This was probably my favorite of the Ravenels or of Lisa Kleypas, and definitely one of the ones I enjoyed most in the month. After that, I read an audiobook, and it was actually a newer release for 2020. I want to say it was released in December of 2020. That might not be exactly right, but it was a late release for 2020. And it's The Moth and the Mountain. And it has an additional title. I think it's, hold on. The Moth and the Mountain, a true story of love, war, and Everest by Ed Ceasar. And I heard this one on Scribd. So let me start off with, but by the way, I think I gave it 3 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I literally love climbing books, climbing movies. I love Everest. I find the idea of it just so incredibly interesting. I gave it 3 stars because I didn't find, so this is a story of, I want to say Maurice Wilson or Matthew Wilson. It's something like that, but it's this crazy British dude that after he was in World War I, and after that basically just like gets this idea that he is going to climb Everest with 0 training. And to do so, he is going to fly there. Also doesn't know how to fly. So it's just this like man who has this crazy idea that he's going to get done. And I found the story particularly interesting. There was actually, so because I've read a lot of climbing books and seen a lot of movies, I know a lot of things, but this one actually gave me some knowledge that I had no idea about. I found it very interesting, and it had to do with the sport of climbing and how it originated and how ultimately Everest came into play on a global scale, why we all know it, why we are mystified by the mountain ultimately as Westerners, right? So ultimately I found the book quite enjoyable. I don't think this is for everyone. I think a lot of people might find it a little bit slow. It was a really cool story about this crazy British dude who decided he was going to climb Everest. So I would say if you like climbing, if you like anything having to do with Everest, give it a shot. It was pretty decent. Okay, after that, I gave myself another palate cleanser. Obviously, I'm also trying to complete the series, but I read Hello Stranger. This is the 4th book in the Ravenel series by Lisa Kleypas. This is the story of Garrett, who is who is Winterbourne's doctor, and she's a female, by the way, and Ethan Ransom, who is this up-and-coming detective. Their story is awesome, and in that you find ways that obviously they're connected to the Ravenels in some way, in big ways. This is a truly enjoyable one. This one had some really cool stuff. I don't honestly think that either of these two are particularly steam heavy. They don't have too many sex scenes as far as I remember, but truly, I think I've said this before, I am so invested in the lives of these people that I need to find out exactly what's going to happen to all of them, regardless of, like, I don't mind the sex scenes one way or the other. I think they're fine. But I'm more interested in, like, I want to know the love story. Like, I eat that shit up. Completely eat that shit up. It doesn't even need to be good, but loving this series. So I cannot wait to do a full video on the complete series that'll be coming soon. Finally, the last book that I read in December was an arc that's going to be coming out later this year. I want to say, I thought the release date was originally going to be February, but I think obviously because of publisher changes, it's looking a little bit more like June or July. But I really liked it, and now I'm upset that I have this one and none of the others are out. So it was Wartime with the Cornish Girls by Betty Walker. This is an Avon Books release. And like I said, I will release more information about when that book is actually coming out and probably do a full review on it. I really enjoyed it. It was essentially the story of these 3 women who, in 1941, during the Blitz in London, end up intersecting lives in Cornwall. And it was such a good time. It was so much fun for a little light novella. And like I said, I am now very invested in the lives of these women and I really want to find out what's going on. I really want to find out what happens. It kind of left you, I don't want to say it left you in a cliffhanger because you can completely read it and be satisfied with the ending, but I know it's a series and I am very excited to find out what's going on with them. Closer to the actual release date or when it does get released, I am going to do a full, more in-depth review on this book. So that was my monthly wrap-up. Thank you for tuning in, guys. As always, leave me an emoji if you stuck to the very end, and I'll chat with you guys next time.